Hey there, and welcome to the Fierce Authenticity Podcast, where I teach you how to decolonize your mind, break free from supremacy's internalized patriarchal conditioning, and have amazing relationships. It doesn't have to be one or the other, friend. You can have both. And my signature framework, Fierce Authenticity, shows you how. I'm your hostess, Sharani M. Patak, and now let's get to it. Welcome back to the Fierce Authenticity Podcast, friends. I am so excited to have you here back with me again today and back with another live studio audience. And remember, friends, if you do not get my emails, you are missing out on invitations to live recordings of the podcast, to join us, to join me right here, right now, like we are about to do today. And so what I want you to do is I really want you to get in on these recordings when they're live, because they truly are master classes in the topics that we go into, and especially when we have a guest like today. So I want you to hop on over to fierceauthenticity.com and scroll down to the button that says get my emails. Okay, go sign up, get my emails. Another way to do that is sharanimfatak.com/connect. That'll take you right there. But either way, friend, please sign up. Come and get these emails, get these invites. They will change your life. And I remember in a recent call of ours, the last guest that we had, a community member of ours told us that it literally changed her life in that 1 hour that we were together. And so this is why I want you here. This is why I want you live. I want you to get your questions answered. I want you to have an opportunity to get coached if that's what's right. And I just want you to be in this space with us live. This is what the podcast has been asking of us. And so that is what I am inviting you into with us and with me today. So make sure you click on that link in the show notes or head to fierceauthenticity.com and click the Get My Emails button. Okay, you're going to want to do that. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce to us today's guest. Riessa Monique is a life and mindset coach that helps people who are the go-to person in their friends and family's lives start making decisions and follow through on the decisions they want for their life. And you guys, I have all of the links to Riessa and her work in the show notes. Be sure you go follow her on Instagram, because she posts some of the most fun reels, some of the most fun content, and they're actually really creative and informative all at the same time. I really enjoyed watching them, especially those ones where Riessa comes out and she's all drumming and sharing a message at the same time. Those are super fun. So friends, make sure you go do that. And welcome, Riessa, to the Fierce Authenticity Podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast, so my cherry is being popped. Yes, thank you. Be gentle.
I love it. I get to pop your podcast cherry. Back in the day when I was in college, I used to pop cherries of our sorority sisters. When they turned 18, I would take them to Mr. Peeps and give them a little bit of sex education. So I am not new at popping women's cherries. I know, I can't believe I just admitted that out loud on the podcast. What is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong here. It's just, I am honored to be popping your podcast cherry. And this is definitely the place that you want to be for that. And so, Riessa, you heard my brief intro of you, and I would love for you to tell me and our friends who are listening in a little bit more about you, and maybe even like why you do what you do, before we dig into our topic, which today is legacies. So exciting.
So my journey actually started in this work. It started in high school, where I would always help people and talk to people, and people will always often suggest I become a therapist. But I had no interest in becoming a therapist because it required me to write papers. And I really liked the math and the science piece. So literally, and I didn't want to be in college forever, so I became an engineer. But I always liked helping people. And even before I decided to become a life coach, I was called a life coach. People would often tell me that I'm their life coach because I genuinely love people. I believe in people. I believe that everyone was made per their design. Like God, the universe, or the creator has that wonderful handbook for everybody. So no one can say that, I'm doing it wrong. Really check the manual, check my manual, check my design. Maybe I'm right on track, because we're all taught that we're supposed to live in this certain box. And honestly, no one's meant to fit in the box. So, and then, what happened with me is in the pandemic, I ended up slowing down, questioning why I did what I did. Because me, just like a lot of my clients, were living on autopilot. Right. And then so we don't question why we do what we do. And the reality is, if we don't necessarily want to do that, is that we know nothing else. Right. So the question was for me is like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Being an IT project manager, is this something I want to keep continuing to do? And the answer was no. And so I got in touch with myself and was honest about the work that I actually really wanted to do. Ended up learning more tools to actually give my clients exponential results, so that they can tap into their own self-worth and understanding their own power, right? Because that's not where we're taught. We're like in the intro that you gave, I help people make decisions because we don't really understand how powerful we are, right? As far as like, we're able to make decisions. We don't have to continue to be on autopilot, right? And just the creators that we are, and those gifts and the strengths and the talents that we automatically have. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, well, that was so powerful. Are you sure you haven't done this before? Because I swear that was like expert. That was pro right there, which of course you are. And that's why you're here with us, right? And I was laughing when you said, like, oh, people are saying you should be a therapist and you didn't want to be a therapist. Like, hello, we all know I just retired as a therapist and I did not want to be a therapist. And yet I spent 16 out of 18 years of my career as a therapist doing something that I was really freaking good at, really skilled at, but didn't want to do, right? And so, I like how you call it like that autopilot, right? For those of us who are on autopilot. And, you, similar to so many others, the pandemic was a time where a lot of people had to slow down and reevaluate, right? Like, what am I doing here? Is this really what I want to do? And I have to say, like, being a Black woman in STEM, like, first of all, that's fucking phenomenal, right? That's amazing. And it probably took a lot. And I'm just like speaking from my own story. You correct me if I'm wrong, but it probably took a lot to be able to sit down and say, there's something different for me, and I'm going to take action towards it.
Yeah, the thing is what I was not actually, if I'm being honest with myself, like, especially to me, when you hit a certain age, there's a bit of uneasiness, but it's because we're going against ourselves, right? The pandemic isn't the first time people were wearing masks. We are trained to wear socialized masks and not be our authentic self since being children, right? Fall in line, fall in the box. Don't be different. Different is weird. And again, our brains want to protect us. And also our caregivers are trying to protect us as far as not being different, right? Fit in the box so you'll be accepted, so you won't be ostracized. But even though like some part of our lower brain has the same survival mechanism, like where being rejected, like back in the caveman days, like it meant that we would die because of lions and tigers and bears would get us. But the thing is that no one is training us that, again, to tap into our uniqueness and all that other stuff. Because what's so interesting to me is that celebrities are always celebrated for their uniqueness, right? But I know for me growing up, if I wore something different, or I would be made fun of. Right? I would be, whether it's family members, friends, or just even people at school. Right. But then if X celebrity does it, oh, did you see Beyonce? She's so innovative. I'd be like, I did that when I was like 5 and people made fun of me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as far as a style, but those are our gifts and talents. And again, I think some of it is us just going against our authentic self and not learning to trust ourselves. So when you said, was it hard for me? No, it actually, that's probably the most aligned I've ever felt in my life. Because again, I was good at math and science. right? But I didn't want to live there doing the type of work I was doing, even though being good at it. So
Well, thank you for sharing that experience, Raisa. And that's so powerful because, like, we need more examples of people like you who do feel that actually this was the easiest, most aligned thing for me to do, right? Because you talked about that program that our lower brain has. Like, we are so wired for survival. We're so wired to stay safe and not be ousted from the community, not be ousted from the group, do whatever we can to belong, right? Even if that means continuing wearing the mask. And so to hear you say, and share your experience of actually, like, it was the most aligned and easiest thing for me to do because I was finally coming into myself, right? And so thank you for sharing that, because I really do think we need more voices and more experiences like that, and examples that it doesn't have to be a struggle. I don't know, I'm just a struggler. It's just like an identity I'm working on letting go, because everything feels like, oh, like always the constant thousand ego deaths of like all the past identities, right? And I appreciate too how you said that it actually, you get to a certain age where you just can't deny like that pull, right? That nagging feeling that's like, yeah, you're not in your aligned place.
yeah, and just honestly, developing that relationship with me, because like what I mean that it was easy for me, because if my relationship with me, that was the easy part. When I think about all the other people's opinions, that's when it becomes scary, right? Because even as being a life coach, a real profession or whatever, or thoughts people may have, right? But it was like me caring more about my own opinion of myself than other people.
Ooh, me caring more about my opinion of myself than other people. Ooh, that is so good. So good.
It's just because if we're on of us are a lot, I mean, we're the thing is our caregivers, when we're taught as kids, it never comes back to us. As far as like, it's like, mommy, daddy, caregiver, whoever, aren't you proud of me? They never focus it back to us to actually care and have opinions about ourselves. But if we're honest about that, I don't know if it's ever happened to you. If your hair, you don't think it looks good, and then everyone tells you it looks good, you're like, whatever.
Mhm,
You don't believe them because it's
mhm.
really our own opinion that matters. That's why sometimes, even when we're inundated with all these compliments, it feels good until we're not around them. They're like, oh, yeah, I don't believe anything that they were saying. But even to bring it back to the conversation we were having a few weeks ago about legacy, right? Because I look good for my age. I look young for my age, right? But I'm 46 years old. And I think we started talking about having kids, and then we started talking about what legacy actually is. And for me, what legacy is, it's people can have children, but legacy is also done, like as far as changing, it's leaving thought processes behind, right? Because I know on your broadcast you talk about patriarchy, white supremacy. Like, it didn't matter about all the kids, right? It's the thought, because no one, I don't know if Gandhi had children. I don't know if all the greats,
Mm.
right? We don't talk about their kids, we talk
Mhm.
about them, right? And the thought process that they were able to share, which other people then started taking on. So it has nothing to do, I don't even know their kids' names, right? You're like, oh, okay. Or let's think about Oprah. Oprah, like people who love Oprah, she has no children. Children have nothing to do with it. Like, even, so good or bad, it's about the legacy is left in the thought process, and not just in that is where the true DNA is, right? And that can go beyond, because I can only birth but so many children, right? But as far as the thought process being left behind and the DNA and how that can have then a trickle down effect, that is more than just having children.
And I love that you say that and you point out these like greats, right? As you call them, because you're absolutely right. And, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, and literally I'm in my own process of like deconditioning, decolonizing, and unbecoming right now as I'm listening to you. Because as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing, in my brain, I have had the programming that legacy is about children, right? But then when you think about it, that actually plays very much into the colonial, capitalist, industrialist, toxic, white supremacist culture, right? Because why is legacy children? Well, legacy is children so that we have more humans to, be cogs in the machine and produce for someone else's profit and gain, right? And so, like, I am literally, you are helping me become and like decondition and decolonize that right now. And especially when you talk about like these, like Gandhi, or you didn't say this, but like Mother Teresa or Oprah, right? Like, absolutely, these are people who, they are the legacy, right? They do live that legacy. And as I heard you say these names and name these greats, what came to me is like, these are thought leaders. These are people who are going against systems and against status quo, right? Maybe still operating within the system in some ways. And on the other hand, like the legacies that they're leaving are, like, I didn't get here just from nowhere, right? Like, I am standing upon the work of so many who came before me, right? And I am grateful for that. And they, these greats that you've named, they're some of the people that have laid those foundational bricks for me to stand upon today as I continue to do this work as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just understanding that impact, because those greats, they weren't necessarily in your lineage. Do you know what I mean? But yet they were able to still lay that foundation, as you said. And even some of these really wealthy people, I forget who, I didn't look it up, but they're not necessarily leaving all their riches to their kids. And one of the reasons why they do that is just because also just leaving money to your kids without the thought process is an injustice. And that's why those families end up losing the money for that particular reason, because all they did was leave them money and they didn't leave them the thought process. Right?
Yes. And that I was going to circle back to that because I think that's such an important part of legacy work. And, I don't talk about this as much as I could, but like, was it last year? I think it was actually, by the time this goes out, it will have been 2021. Like a new framework for fierce authenticity dropped in. And I was like, what is fierce authenticity really? Well, it wasn't a framework, it was like a formula. And the formula is heart work plus somatic work equals a new legacy. And that's why I was so excited to invite you on to have this conversation, because like, for me, the heart work is really like we're healing those relationships with ourselves and others, right? With source self and others. And we're getting into right relationship with ourselves, with other people around us, with the divine source of something greater than us, right? We have to do that work. Plus, we have to do the somatic work, which is getting in touch with what is our body telling us? What are the messages our nervous system's giving us? What is my lower brain, the threat and survival oriented part of my brain telling me? And is that true, right? Like, am I still living in that moment right now? Or is this a different moment and my brain's alarm system is just going on, right? And from the combination of getting into right relationship with others and getting into relationship with ourselves and our bodies, that's how we create this new legacy. And to me, the heart work and the somatic work really changes, and I love how you already like went there, like literally changes our DNA, because we are now no longer getting triggered, right, by the same things that perhaps our ancestors were conditioned to get triggered by. And therefore, like, we don't have to pass that down. It is no longer a part of our wiring to get activated by something that is no longer a threat today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even teaching those things to other people that aren't your children, right? But the impact is so great. So like, even just to minimize legacy to children, it minimizes our impact and we're actually on this earth to do.
There's another one of those truth bomb moments. that when we limit it to our children, we limit the impact. And, this is one of the things that I love about the work that I do, and I know the work that you do, and so many people who are in my sphere do, is like, we work with the one person, but it ripples out and touches every single person that person touches, right? It touches their coworkers, their colleagues, their bosses, the teams they lead, the checker at the grocery store, the barista at Starbucks, right? Like, it touches all of these people. And so even if, like, you're listening in and you're like, "Ooh, I'm not here to leave a big global legacy," right? Like, that might be scary, and might not be everybody's path, right? But just the fact that doing this work is that ripple that touches everybody in this way, like, that is the legacy.
Oh, absolutely. And I think sometimes that we as people don't understand the impact we're already having on people's lives just because we don't hear about it, right? Unfortunately, people will hear about it at their funerals or after they pass. Oh my gosh, remember that time? We don't, I think we should actually have funerals when we're living so we can hear that and we can know that how much we are actually loved. But like, I actually went to a funeral with an old family friend, and I heard from their daughter. Like, when I was 12 years old, I used to take the 5-year-old daughter to the park, and it meant so much to her. She's now like 29 telling me this about what that meant, right? And that's a little small thing, but I'm just saying, even as for her to bring that up to me, it must have meant something to her. I don't even know the scope or how that impacts or shows up in her life. But the thing is that us as people are already having impact. We just don't understand. We may never see or never understand that, but we don't understand how we can have such a greater impact. And that is not to scare people with responsibility, but the fact that literally we are gifted and talented and already have everything we need in order to do that. It's literally just stepping into that and no longer being afraid of our own powers, our own gifts, almost like, because that was a thing for me. Like, growing up, I felt like I always was created to do great things in my life, but I was like the little girl who felt like my powers would hurt me and the others around me. Right? Don't ask me how or why or what that would actually look like. I didn't know, but I was afraid of me. Right? So as a result, I played small and I wasn't stepping into those gifts, those talents, and everything else. Can I sing? I can dance okay, but you know what I mean? Like, so like, but like, I mean, like, I'm not that, but that I really truly believe everyone was born with gifts and talents, but we have a tendency to play small and shy away from that as if it was scary, and not understanding even with those gifts and talents, we can have even a greater impact, but we're already having an impact because someone else is watching our life and we are being an example of something.
Right. Whether that be to, like, as I said, a coworker, a colleague, a team member that you lead, or the guy that you hold a door open for randomly, right? And I had that experience yesterday, and it really made me pause to think. Like, I was in a parking lot that like in the strip mall, right, going to pick up pizza. It was Friday night, and so I was going to pick up pizza, and the parking lot was a cluster mess, and I was feeling a little flustered because, like, there was people traffic and car traffic, and it was just like really congested and messy, and it was like really like triggering some anxiety in me. And I was like, let me just go and get this pizza and get out of here, right? So I'm kind of in this flustered space anyway, and so I walk in to the pizza place. I get my pizza, I walk out, and normally I'd hold the door open for people, right? Like, because that's like the kind thing to do, right? That's a way that we have impact on people without knowing it, right? And I was so flustered and so in a rush. I was like, I just want to get out of here and like get in my car and just get out of here and go home and eat my pizza. I'm getting hangry, right? And so I didn't hold the door open. And literally, because I was so flustered, it took me a few steps before I realized that there was an elderly gentleman about to walk in to the pizza place. And I was like, I turned around and I said, I am so sorry. Like, I did not see you there. And it took him a couple seconds to register that I was talking to him, right? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it, right? And he had this big smile on his face. And it really made me like pause and think about just like how, and especially with ageism and how invisible elderly people are to most of us, right? In our culture, in this white supremacist patriarchal society. And I just like felt so touched. I was like, wow, what if more of us like literally turned around and just like held the door and smiled at someone or said, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, and like offered them a smile and then they smiled back, right? Like that is part of leaving a legacy right there. And, I don't know if it's coming across, but a part of me is almost like tearing up as I'm like retelling the story because it was such a special moment, and it felt really connection. It felt like a connection was made with another human being, right? This person, yes, they may have been invisible when I was in my own flustered moment. And when my brain came back online, it was like, oh, there's an actual human here. Oh my gosh, I didn't hold the door open. And I could have just kept walking, but something moved me to turn around and say, I didn't see you. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? So that's what that makes me think of.
No, but I think because like even we were telling this before you mentioned connection, that's what I saw as far as connection, right? Because especially in this Western society, we're all supposed to be individuals, and like all of us are connected regardless of what we think, right? Because we all come from the same place, but we're denying that. So a lot of us just want to be seen because what you did was you saw him, and you seeing him, you saw the connection between you guys. And I really do believe, and I've seen stories on Instagram, like literally people are just walking around every day and just want to be seen.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because we actually have someone in our live studio audience whose whole work in this world is about helping, in particular, Black women be seen. Miss Chaston, I know she will come on later when it's time for the live interactive portion of our call today. And, that's also the sub what's it, sub headline, the whatever, my first book, Show Up, Be Seen, Get Love, right? Like, because that is all any of us want to do. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be understood for who we authentically are.
Yes.
Because of course, fierce authenticity is this whole brand, right? And so when you were touching upon that earlier, I really loved that because it brings it back to how we have been socialized and conditioned out of it. And, I'm thinking of Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate, and he talks about like, authenticity is our connection to ourself. Like we want to be like, as humans, we have two needs, right? And that is the need to be connected with others and connected with ourselves. Like that is really how survival works. I'm totally butchering the quote, but I used it in my second book that's still in progress right now. And it's just, he talks about how like our connection with ourselves, our own authenticity is severed when, we grow up in environments where they're like, something is something like, the sky is blue, but they're telling you the sky is green, right? And you're like, that's not right. But they told me the sky is green, so the sky must be green, so I must be wrong, and the sky must not be blue, right? And that cuts us off. It severs us from our connection with ourselves. And that's how authenticity is so challenging for so many of us. And then you talk, Riessa, about the masks that we wear, that we end up putting on. And that is what I feel into as I deepen into the conversation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As far as like you mentioned, authenticity for that reason can feel scary because we're taught at a young age, like you mentioned with that whole analogy, they say the sky is green, so it must be green. So not only am I wrong, but I can't trust myself.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So let
And
me
that
ask
is,
everybody else what color the sky is, because I see something, but it can't be right.
yes. Well, and that is the, I think the work that we all do, right? I know I do this work. I know you do this work, is really helping clients get back into relationship with themselves and with that inner trust, their inner knowing of, no, this, I can trust this,
Mhm.
and I can trust myself.
And I can have my back, right? Because it's so easy to be somewhere and like, oh, I have my friends back, or I have my significant others back. But can we have our own back? Right? Because trust can feel scary when we think we're going to do it wrong, right? Okay, if I make a left turn and I should have made a right turn, or I got lost when I was driving somewhere, am I going to beat myself up? Or am I going to comfort and have compassion and grace for myself that it's okay? And I will get to my destination, even if it's a very scenic route.
And trusting, coming back to something that you said earlier, that you took that quote unquote wrong turn by design, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
Mhm.
already written in the book of Riessa, or the book of
Absolutely.
Sharani, or the book of friend listening to us right now, right? It's
Absolutely.
already written in there. And, I kind of want to take us there for a few moments. Tell us more about that, like your thoughts around that, and how you work and support clients with that. Like, it just feels like that part wants to be spoken to.
Oh, as far as them people getting more in touch with.
And just our design, like
Okay.
how, like that faith and that trust, right? That there is like a design for our lives, some divine entity, creator, God, goddess, the universe, however you want to call this divine entity, but like, just, yeah, all of it, whatever. Go ahead and just speak to it, Raisa.
Yeah. So, like, again, a lot of us, so working with clients just to figuring out why they do what they do, right?
Mm.
Because if we're honest, right, even a lot of us, what are some of our professions, right? When I was growing up, there were only but so many professions to choose from. It's not necessarily what I wanted to do. It was just one of the options that I selected, and I was told it was a good one. So it's just working with my clients, like figuring it out. Well, first of all, it's also working with my clients to know it's safe for them to have desires. Because I never forget when I was doing this work and someone asked me, well, what do you want? That was so scary to me. I was like, I don't even know, because according to everybody else's manual for my life, I should want the house, the husband, the kids, live in this house, do this, do that. Like there's a checkbox, right? But to know that there's safety in literally what I want, and sometimes that starts as basic as, what do you want for dinner? What do you want to do Saturday at 1 o'clock? Right? Just
Mm.
honestly honoring that part of yourself, like without judgment. Because a lot of us have, again, those caretakers in our mind or whatever, that it actually judges us and stops us from doing stuff. Oh, that's dumb. That's stupid. Right? Like, even you mentioned me taking drums. Right. At 46 years old, I said, I'm going to learn how to take drums. That's play drums. And the reason why I did that, I was literally like having a conversation with myself. Like, what do I want to do? I want to learn how to play drums, right? Why? Because I want to. And like, honestly, like sometimes we are so, especially women, are tend to attend to everyone's needs. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I want what you want. No, it's safe knowing that, one, it's safe for them to want. And they were given those desires, right? And the desires most likely won't match what everybody else wants. And that's okay. I don't care if you're 55 years old and you want to play with Legos, right? Or what, it doesn't matter. There's knowing there is no wrong answer, right? Because, okay, that's dumb, that's stupid. According to whose standards,
Mm.
right? Because if we're honest with ourselves, it's like we automatically think, oh, I like this. Well, do you really like it? Or were we programmed to like it?
Mm.
Right? Whose standards? And it's okay if, like, hey, I want to do something and maybe the masses does like it. That's fine, as long as we're just being honest with with ourselves, but understanding there is no wrong answer, right? Because me playing drums at 46 years old, like I even like to like hold up a book, right? According to my design book, yep, it's right here, right?
Oh.
Me being 46 years old, I have no kids. I'm currently not married. Yep, that's per my design. And it's all good, right? Because the thing is that a lot of the time we have judgment and we have all this shame because I'm comparing my life to someone else. At 46, I should be married. At 46, I should have kids. I should have this. Should. Who says? Who's like Lizzie, Disney movies will teach us you do this and you have happily ever after. Okay, first of all, that doesn't even ever exist. Right? Marketing tells us I should buy these jeans, I should do this, and then I'll be happy. The human experience is about all the emotions. All of them. I like to call them comfortable and uncomfortable, not even necessarily positive and negative. Because even me being sad is not negative, right? That is like, if I'm sad for whatever reason, that's okay. That's like part of the experience. My dog dies. I don't want to be happy about it. Oh, I'm so happy. Lassie's gone. Yeah. Like that would be weird. Right? You want to say something?
Well, no, first of all, I want to, for the folks who are listening into the audio version of the podcast who didn't see what you were doing, like, I love the visual of what you just gave, right, Issa, where you're like, oh, playing drums at 46, like literally the action of holding open a book, scrolling through it, and finding the part in the book and pointing to it that says, oh, Riessa, play drums at 46, right? Or flipping through that book and tell us, Riessa, do you have like a literal book that you use, or do you use your hands?
No, well, sometimes it all depends. Sometimes I use my hands. Sometimes I have a binder. I don't have it with me, and I made it. It says made per your design. And the thing is, it's just because of the simple fact that anything we purchase, right, has a design. It has a design book or handbook or whatever on how it's supposed to operate, right? So if I try to use a hammer to warm up my food, people be like, that doesn't make sense, right? It's not per the design. So who's to say that I'm supposed to have children? Who's supposed to say that I'm supposed to have whatever? Even long hair right now. I choose to have short hair. That's what I want. That's what I'm gonna do, right? But like, I wasn't designed to have, and no one was designed to live in this box that colonialism, patriarchy, and all these other systems have told us we're supposed to. Like, even with the education system, literally everyone doesn't even learn the same way.
Yeah. Well, and I'm having this idea as I'm hearing you, like, of creating a notebook that is the book of Sharani, right? Yep. Like the book of Sharani, the design of Sharani, and writing these things down and then pulling out that book and being like, yep, quit being a therapist at age 38. Yep. Okay, there it is. Here it is in the book, right? Really launch full into the coaching, consulting, teaching, leading, facilitating. Oh, going full-time all in 2023. Yep, that's when she did that, right? Like, I just love the idea of that. And I love how it takes away the judgment and the shame, and you talked about like the criticism and comparison. And those are some of the things, I've been working on like a list of 7 deadly sins type things for like fierce authenticity, and judgment, criticism, shame, and blame are definitely on there. Right. And just this idea of like just opening up the book and being like, yep, here's my divine design. This is how I was created. Right. It totally disarms all of the shame that's wrapped up with the stories of, well, who am I to be learning drums at 46? Who am I to be quitting being a therapist at the age of 38 when I still have $100 gazillion I owe in student loan debt to NYU for this, right? Like, there's all these things like, oh, who am I? It's right here in my design book. That's who I am. It's right here.
And this is all part of the story. So no one's behind. Like, oh, I'm so behind. Who says? Let's look at the book, right? Right? Because 38, no longer a full-time therapist. You're right on track. Like going in on your business. You're right on track. Like, this is like, sometimes in the present, we forget about everything we've accomplished, because how cool of a story is this, right? So you're looking back 5 years from now. How cool is it that now I'm no longer a full-time therapist. I owe NYU all this money and I still did it. I still did it. And it all makes sense now, because when we're in it, we can't see how the dots are connected. It's only in retrospect that we can actually see the picture.
Yeah.
And
Which
how
is,
it all makes sense.
yeah, which is why I love this idea for myself. Like, we're recording this right before my winter break, and it'll be released at the end of January. And like, I already see this beautiful exercise for me for the couple weeks that I'm off, right? Is really creating the book of Sharani, like my design, and documenting these key pivotal moments, right? Because I love what you're saying, like, you're not behind. By whose standards? By what, right? And I think this loops us right back around to our legacy, no matter what legacy that is we're leaving behind, right? Because our legacy is also in that book of design, like the divine design of who Sharani is, who Riessa is, who Chest is, who Vani is, who anyone else listening in on this is, right? So, yeah.
And understanding, like, we will never know the impact of that legacy, right? So sometimes it's easy to get caught up. Well, I can't see it. I'm not making a difference. But the reality is we will never know the true impact. For instance, you mentioned Mother Teresa and her work, and Gandhi and his work. Did he know the ripple down effect? No, he literally wasn't eating. He was on a hunger strike. Did he know what would happen? No. And there's so many other people that came before us that have no idea what their impact what it actually had. And it can be multiple generations. But it's so easy for us to walk around like we're insignificant, right? Because the world will try to tell us that. But again, if we go into our design, right, we are significant. Every single person who is hearing this or listening to this or watching this is significant, because per our design, not to anyone else's. Again, like I said, if I compared a hammer to a microwave, it wouldn't make sense. But who am I to compare myself to anyone else? Because I am made, and just like you, the listener, is made per your design. And then sometimes it could be like, I don't know what that is. And that is what's so important, is even with our work, and we can help people uncover what those things are actually are.
And I feel like we're getting ready to wind down here, and that visual that you just gave of the hammer and the microwave, right? The hammer is not wrong for being a hammer, and the microwave is not wrong for being a microwave, right? They each have their role, they each have their purpose, they each have their duty, they each do different things to help keep our world going round, right? To help us build shelter, and also keep us, if we reheat our food, if we are privileged enough to have a microwave in our home, or if we choose to. For a long time I didn't have a microwave, but like, and I think that's beautiful. And I think the really important thing for us to hone in on here as we start wrapping up this portion of the call is the part that you are not insignificant, and the impact you have and the legacy you leave is not insignificant just because you can't see it, right? Coming back to the example with that elderly gentleman yesterday, I don't know if he was having a bad day. I don't know if he was having a good day. I don't know if he was going to go home and eat this pizza and then like wallow in misery or blow his brains out. I have no idea, right? Or if he was going home to a family event, and I don't know, right? But what I do know is that interaction, that connection right there, that being seen right there, I know that changed something, even though I don't know what it looks like throughout the rest of his day or throughout the rest of his life. And so I think it's really important that we recognize that we may never know, especially when you take into account all of the humans we do engage with all day, every day. We have that many opportunities to leave our legacy.
Absolutely.
All right, Issa, as we wrap up this portion of our conversation, is there anything else that is like on your heart that like has to get out right now before we shift over to the Q&A coaching portion of our call?
No, just to sum it up, I mean, as far as like embracing your own design, even your own quirkiness, your own desires, and just know that you are right on track, right? And for anyone else to tell you you're not on track, have them pull out your design. They don't have it. So how could they say, like, Colonel Sanders was like 60 years old knocking on people's doors about his chicken recipe and knocked in over 1,000 before he got got a yes. And people eat KFC. I'm not endorsing it. I was just giving an example.
Yeah,
But
no, I love that. And embracing your own design, that you're right on track. And also something I wrote down earlier, which is that there is safety in what I want.
absolutely.
Oh, how powerful. If we all knew that, if we all knew that, these systems would collapse in a heartbeat, right? That there
Oh,
is safety in what I want. Because most of the time, what most of us want is not conform, like bound by the confines of the conformity, right? Chasten popped into the chat, your safety demands what you want. Yes, absolutely. And oh my gosh, this was so good. And I know we can go on. And I definitely want to give our live audience an opportunity to pop in to ask any questions. I see someone has a hand raised. Chasten, go for it. Hello, Miss Chasten.
Hi. I just
Hi.
wanted to thank you for this conversation and this reframing, Raisa, because it's just been such, I've always said I've never had a strong desire to have biological children. Like one day I might foster or adopt, but there's just been this thought and this belief that I've had that it hasn't felt good in my body, feeling like, oh my God, but like, well, this is like hyping myself up, but it's such good DNA. Like, why don't I want to pass it on? Like, my mom and dad's DNA is lit. My DNA is lit. Like, is it just going to end here? But I've never felt that call. I've felt like the people of the world are my call. And just hearing you like drop in like Oprah, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, like all of these really, these thought leaders that have had massive wide impact that don't have children, has just created this reframe for me that is just, it just relieved a lot of internal suffering that I was inflicting upon myself. That I was like, I know I believe this, but like, why can't I feel it in my body? Because I'm such a body person. And so I guess my thinking was like, well, if I'm doing all this work to unravel all this tension in my body and it's passed through the DNA, then like, am I not fulfilling my work by not passing it on to like my biological children's DNA so they get to feel even more open in their bodies, so they get to be born with even less trauma in their DNA? But just the thought of being able to create that impact with any human that I come into contact with, it doesn't have to be someone who's come through my womb, that I'm still creating the same effect of unraveling tension from the body and creating more breath in the body. And then whoever comes through their womb is going to have the gift of that, and so on and so forth. Not only that, it doesn't have to just transfer biologically, it can transfer energetically. And that's just given me a lot of peace. So this is just like a big resounding thank you, because this is a question that I've been toiling with for a really long time. And like I sat down with this conversation, like, should I freeze my eggs? Like, I'm 37, I don't want kids, but just like feeling pressure. And now I'm like, fuck it. My eggs are free for everyone and everywhere at all times, like I got energetic eggs. and they are gifts found for the world. So just very grateful for this conversation. I was really excited to hear what came through, and the reframes that you offered really grounded in my body for me. So I'm very appreciative.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, Chasten, and for being such an active member and participant in our community, and also for like just being here and bringing your energy to the space, right? And in hearing you speak, and Raisa, feel free to jump in at any time, but like just hearing you speak, Chasten, I think about all like the ways that even the work that you do in the world, and even the way that you just are, your very being, right? Like impacting the nervous systems of those around you, especially the work that you do working with Black women, right? To help them be seen and to live audaciously, and to feel safety in that. Like that's the legacy, that's part of the legacy that you're leaving behind. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand, and that I wish more people knew, is how much power our nervous systems have over us and over other people. Because we are social, emotional creatures. Humans are wired this way. Our brains are literally wired to feed off of whatever energy we're in. Raisa, was there anything you wanted to say?
Oh, the thing is, Justin, when you were talking about my DNA so awesome, I should want to like have children. Totally had that thought. So I can totally understand. So yeah, I can totally relate to that. But just understanding our impact is so much greater than if I had 1 or 2 or even 5 kids, right? Because
there was definitely a feeling that I was doing all of my prior ancestors a disservice by not continuing.
Right, but you know what? So I don't know if Harriet Tubman had kids, but I don't know them. Do you know what I mean? Harriet Tubman freed over 300 slaves, right? And led them to freedom. But what was that impact to those 300 and the many more that she may have influenced? First, even actually, she did have children, but I don't know them.
She left them.
No, right. But that's what I mean. So like,
yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't know anything about her children, but I know her, right? And even with Gandhi, I don't know if he actually had kids. I don't know them, right? And I don't know the impact they're actually having. I know the impact he actually had on the country, right? And even beyond those borders. So the thing is that even for those who choose to have children, just understand the opportunities for legacy is beyond the children, right? Because even if I did have kids and I just had 2 kids and that was my sole legacy, that would be injustice for all the gifts and talents that I have to have beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, that like the way of thinking of like, well, gosh, like everything that they went through to get us here, and I'm just gonna stop it. It's like, no, you're continuing it exponentially, and you're choosing to harness your energy to be able to do so. Because for me, I know that I can't do my work and mother, and maybe that's a disempowering thought, but I'm immunocompromised, and sleep deprivation makes me it's threatening to my life. And so I choose myself and my work consciously and intentionally. And for so long, I just felt like, oh gosh, am I letting my whole family down? But
how about in the choices that you have made, what are ways that you're not letting your family down by doing this exact work?
Exactly. Even if it's something that they can't understand or see.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, once you get the attention and all this other stuff, I always knew she would do it. Family, that's family. that's no, seriously, I always knew you would make it. That's not what you told me at Thanksgiving. Like, no, but honestly, that's so many times family think that, again, you know how like our brain tries to protect us, our family is doing it. And all the time well, sometimes they're also projecting their own disbeliefs about themselves, right? So it's not so much that they don't think you can, is that they don't think they can. But it ends up speaking like, I don't understand this. I don't understand why you don't get a real job or whatever. They're just talking from their own programming. But in you succeeding in what you do and whatever success looks like to you, you are again setting an example for them as far as what's possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And Shaston, I just want to thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability and sharing with all of us, right? That, and I am not going to lie, that is secretly the exact things that you said are secretly why I invited Riessa onto the podcast so that we could have this conversation, because I too have had very similar thoughts, right? I'm doing all this fucking work, like changing all these fucking family legacies for what? For what? Right? If I do choose that you to not procreate, right? Human babies. And so yeah, secretly that is also why, and not so secret anymore, but that is why I did invite Riessa to join us. And so thank you again for allowing yourself to be seen and held here in the space of our community, Chasten. Thank you.
Thanks for creating the space and starting the conversation. Because as soon as I saw legacies, I was like, I'm there. Just this big thing that just nags at underneath, the surface.
And I'm gonna put you on the spot right here, Chasten. I'm gonna invite you to put in a plug for all those people who are not here in our community yet, coming to our live calls. Like, what do they need to hear? What do they tell them what they need to hear, Chasten? Which obviously is get their butt in here right now, but
get your butt in here right now, because we are doing progressive work, evolving the human species forward by leaning into what you guys were talking about before, connection. We're so disconnected, and the only way we continue to evolve is by connecting back with ourselves and connecting back with each other, which is our natural state of interconnectedness. We are community species through and through, and we thrive in community. As long as we are individualists, we are going to continue to be in a state of survival.
Oh, fire right there. Woo, yes. And thank you for letting me put you on the spot like that, to tell our listeners, our viewers, why they need to come and be in our community. And again, friend, the link to join us, because your attendance and your participation here, at least for season 4, is a benefit, a perk of you being in our complimentary email community. Like literally, none of our live audience members pay a cent to come here and participate and receive these transmissions and these messages. And I want this for you. I want you to be here. I want you to experience this. So fierceauthenticity.com, scroll down to the button that says get my emails. And that is the only way to get invitations to our community gatherings like this. So thank you, Chasten, for letting me put you on the spot. And we do have another community member on the line. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question, a comment, anything that you'd like to share. I don't know.
Hi.
Hi.
So Riessa, thank you for being here today. I'm actually grateful that you mentioned and that we keep bringing the conversation back to kids, our kids, our only legacy, which I think is funny because I'm currently pregnant and thinking about what is my legacy? What am I going to leave behind for my kids? Like, what can I do differently for my kid that my parents didn't do for me? What can I do differently for my future generations, and hopefully bring that forward through my child to the rest of the generations in my family? Like, I know my sister doesn't want to have kids, and that's fine. That's totally fine. You can help me raise mine.
I don't know yet. It's still undecided, okay?
but um, but I think it's amazing because I'm like, what work am I doing in myself now? And part of that is understanding that I'm most at peace in my solitude. I am most at peace with myself. And because of that, I can be present for my loved ones when I'm with them or when they need me. And if I don't have time to myself, I am the grumpiest, nastiest, meanest bitch I know.
I can vouch for that. For those of you who haven't picked up on it yet, this is my sister, Bonnie, right here on the line.
So thank you for bringing up children and reminding us that our children are not our legacy. It's the impact that we have in general. Because like you said, Harriet Tubman, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, what we don't know their kids. I mean, Mother Teresa, I assume doesn't have kids because she was a nun, but I don't know that for sure. um, but thank you for being here today, and thank you, Chastin, for the conversation um, that ensued here today. I was really grateful to be part of it.
And thank you for being here. And in case it wasn't clear to anyone listening or watching, that is my dearly beloved sister, Ms. Bonnie Batak, who is also our wonderful transcript proofreader, formatter. She does our transcripts for us this season, makes them look all good. And again, you can find those over at fierceauthenticity.com as well. That is the home, that is the hub for everything. And thank you again for everyone who's here, who's participating in this community. This truly is my life's work. It is my life's work to bring us together, to have these conversations, to facilitate the healing that happens when we come together in community and when we open ourselves up to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, and how we get to experience the love and belonging that comes from that. And so, again, friend, if you are not in our community, come join us, fierceauthenticity.com. And before we go, Riessa, are there, I got two questions for you. One is, do you have any final thoughts? And two is, where can people find you? Of course, all the links are going to be in the show notes, and I want you to let our people know where they can find you.
My only final thought, Bonnie, is that how you say your name? I thought that was so cool how she owned that. Again, per her design, she likes solitude. That's not wrong. That's not incorrect. That's not a problem. Again, opening the book of Bonnie's design, solitude, check, right on track. And the way everyone can find me, the best place to find me is on Instagram at Riessa Monique, and I'm sure you're going to have it in the show notes. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being so gentle and holding me, being that it was my first time.
And I'm telling you, Riessa, you cannot tell that this was your first time. You are a pro at this, and it was truly an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for spending a part of your Saturday afternoon. I know you're on the East Coast, and so it's even later in the day for you. Just thank you for sharing this time with us and bringing your wisdom and your medicine to me, to us, to our community, and to the world when this episode is released live and public. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone for being here live, for tuning in, for watching, for listening. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you screenshot, make sure you share, make sure you tag us. Let us know what this episode did for you. And I don't know about Riessa, but I know if you tag me, I have a feeling Riessa's like this too, but if you tag me, I will respond. I will respond to what this shifted for you and what you got out of this. So again, friends, with my whole entire heart, thank you so much for being here. And before I say that last part, Riessa, it feels important. You're going to engage with them, right? If they tag you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
I didn't want to leave it hanging. I was like, wait a minute. I can't like throw shade at Riessa like that and leave it like that. No, I know she is going to engage with you. And she just told you she will engage with you. And so, yes, tag us, let us know what this did for you. We will engage back with you. And this is how we grow our community. And like Chasten said, it is when we keep staying individual and isolated that we keep perpetuating these systems. But when we come together in community is how we heal and how we grow and how we deprogram, decondition, decolonize, how we do all of this demolishing of systems of supremacy and patriarchy that we have internalized within ourselves. So again, thank you all so much, and we will be together again soon.